This is House Corrections and Institutions. It is January 15th, Wednesday. We're continuing our conversations with BGS, and we have the Commissioner of BGS with us again, and she is going to go over briefly or in depth, however we work on this, in terms of what reports were requested of them in the last capital bill or even before. So Commissioner, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, for the record, Wanda Manoli, Commissioner of Buildings and General Services. As the members know, and new members will quickly learn, there are multiple reports sometimes that come out of bills, and we have a deadline filing. We have to consolidate. We consolidate, and that's the document that's been sent to you. One document that contains reports BGS is directed to lead, which is really important. And we file these electronically. So when you go to your homepage, there are also all of the reports required. There's I use it. It's actually a great tool.
Homepage
of the legislature, your homepage. And there is a link to all legislative reports filed, and the history's there, and it is actually, it's a tool I use all of the time.
Good bedtime reading. Sleep.
So the document that you have been provided has been filed. The first thing that I would like to go to, because these were separate filings and are not in here, on January 7th, I communicated in writing with the Speaker of the House and the Chair of House Corrections and Institutions that there is a report that you all heard about this morning that is about the state naming of buildings. And and so because of the change in my position and the challenges this committee's been having on making some recommendations, because it's been a study that's been around for many, many years, we've actually asked for an extension of April 15th, 2025 to be considered. I'm not sure if the chair has seen this document yet.
No, I haven't. I'm in the middle of something right now. I'm sorry.
So I filed on January 7th, a request to you and the Speaker to do an extension to April of 2025 on the report due to the naming of state facilities. So that is not contained in this document, and you had to
sent us that last week. I don't even remember.
It was filed electronically.
Okay.
So, and I think we pink mailed it. No, maybe that's our problem. Madam Chair, with permission, I will pass this down to you. Would you like it?
You want an extension?
Yes, and here, and you may have that, and we'll follow up. Okay. So, there's that request in the report. So the next one, and you all had an overview of this today. And we sent on January 15th, which is today, communication to the chair of this committee and to the chair of Senate institutions. So apparently we were asked to do we're asking for an extension on the study for fish and wildlife on the potential land transfer around the correctional facility that you were speaking of this morning. There's been a change in the commissioner there. There's been a change here, and we're trying to figure, I'm not even sure if the new commissioner wants this land. We need to have a better understanding of what is the vision and the mission to work together to bring that forward to you. So we also asked for April 15th, 2025. With permission, I'll pass this down to you.
Is Fish and Wildlife interim right now, Commissioner?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, yes, and we did do, I know, Director Pembroke, did reach out to them to see if we could get a status on where they wanted to go, and we have not been able to, connect. So these are two of those items that are in transition, ma'am.
Got any more?
No. No. Well, wait a minute, when I reread the Act 182 that I heard this morning, I may.
You may. What I'm wondering is we're gonna be looking into one of these situations, definitely, which is the Windsor one. I mean, I don't have a problem with extending it. What I'm thinking is we've got this whole legislative session to vet it again.
Yeah.
As well. We have a new committee. We have 6 new members to the committee. We need some background in terms of the Windsor. This was the old Windsor Correctional Facility. It's been closed for going on almost 10 years. It has not been mothballed. We have 100 acres there with buildings that could be repurposed, but they would take quite a bit of money for repurposing because some of those would have to be raised. Some could be renovated. You have to work with the community of Windsor. And we've been reluctant to sell that property. A legislator from that area was really hoping that Fish and Wildlife would be interested in some more of the property there. I think extending the time of the report for either one of this is okay. The question is, I would like to schedule some testimony to really bring us up to speed on the Windsor land and the history of that. I wonder if you folks be able to do something on that Friday afternoon.
I'm not sure,
Is that too short?
I'm not sure about Friday, but I think it would be a great item for next week.
Yep.
I do have a small presentation I could offer for Friday if there's benefits.
Because there's a long history here.
There is a long
Long
history, and I think we've been a great community partner when I was there. We got some land transferred, we got Fish and Wildlife. I remember, Madam Chair, when the now Secretary of Administration was the commissioner, and we actually walked the property with her. I don't know if you remember. And that's a steep property. And my understanding, depending on who I talked to, that the original request came from the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and they wanted more property up to the fence line. So I think a presentation, because we drew a boundary, we all agreed on where the state's property would go to, and everything else would transfer. My understanding is the study, my understanding, and I would love clarity from this committee and some direction, is that it's to take the land from where we brought it to this point to the fence and to go closer to the fence. And I'm like, we don't need a study for that, do we? So I really do want to understand this because I want to be able to give you the information you need
So let's really schedule some time, probably next week then,
on Windsor.
on Windsor to go through the history, when we closed the Windsor facility. The boundaries, because when we,
Close the boundaries
do you remember you were?
and the transfer of property.
Yeah, the Fish and Wildlife, there's 800 acres, 900 acres there plus that we own, and we transferred almost 800 acres of the property to Fish and Wildlife for a wildlife management area. And it would be really good to be put up on the screen, the map of the area. And you were with us, I think, when we carved all that out with Becky Wasserman, trying to figure out the border.
Yeah.
Because it hadn't been surveyed, but we have about 100 acres.
Yes.
We have with the correctional facility and the buffer.
And I
The question
understand
is,
that,
what do we do with all
right, the
this?
previous commissioner of Fish and Wildlife apparently wanted that additional land, but I don't know if that mission's changed. So we probably, we will try to connect with the interim commissioner. We'll take a lead on that because they probably should be included in this discussion, Madam Chair. I don't, I mean, we can give the history, the overview and what the boundaries are. You don't need them for that. But when we get into the policy or the use, they definitely need to be included in the conversation.
So as a committee member, it's fine with extending the report to the 15th of April, which means you might not need the report because we can deal with it.
Were they both 15th of April? Both extended?
Yeah, because that just, my taxes are due.
In terms of naming state buildings, that's, very helpful. Connor, help
What
me.
delay unless Connor's gonna introduce that.
I
I haven't submitted.
He's going to reintroduce her on the Bathurst site. On the state
I
house.
mean, it'll be,
No, the
it
first-
will be submitted, but, I can't imagine it
You
won't.
think so?
I can't imagine it won't.
To who? Who's gonna sponsor that?
Newbie,
Yeah.
that's naming 133 State Street. We've come up with a new name for 133 State Street.
Casey Memorial.
No,
No, it's better.
Wanda would appreciate that. The Hoff name.
So I see that. I see that. There's so much history. When I saw that this report was due again, I think I have found 7 reports,
On this topic.
7 studies on this
Studies.
conversation. And they're all coming up, they're all repeating the same findings.
Hmm.
And the repeating of those same findings is either leave it here or simply don't name state buildings. And I think you're gonna have to take that up. We have great concern about using the Capitol Complex Commission. If you turn your authority over to another entity, then you don't have authority. And one of the great examples, and I think you've probably heard this, is, do you want someone else naming the State House? Do you want to restrict it in the Capitol Complex? I do think there's some policy things. So I'm trying to bring that into one of the things with the extension, I haven't been able to meet on it. But it's also, do we, because of the experience in the other studies, do we work with the committee on some different recommendations? And so you can consider that as a policy.
But there isn't, who is chair of this study committee?
Well, that's a good question. I'm looking at Emily because Emily actually took the lead for me to reach out.
So, working with ACCD. And I think the conversations, reached out to refresh conversations, so we just need to reset them.
Has the committee met at all?
I think that they had an initial discussion, but it was not, I don't think that they offered. To be honest, so I think that they reached out to us to restart those conversations and we just need to regroup.
Because didn't we list it in the bill?
It's in the capital bill. It's on page 23.
And it is just, as I said, it was more about coming in October, seeing it, and then and then having the deliverable on the report. So I'm the one who asked them to support an extension because this has a huge impact on the policy and on all buildings and what we construct and what we oversee. And I want to be a part of that conversation, and I haven't been able to.
So do you think, I mean, this report isn't due until the 15th, February. Is there any way between now and then to give a preliminary thought, or is that too soon?
I'm asking for the extension because we're also working on the capital bill and we're trying to present to you all of the sections, and I mean, Madam Chair, you can ask us to do it by the 15th and we can try. I'm not sure what level of information you will have. You are the committee who asked for us to do this.
Trying to remember when this came up year two. Right?
Well, it's been circling
I
around
don't know.
for 5
For
years.
I
years.
mean, I don't. My thoughts, if we push this to April 15th from February 15th, I mean, we're not taking, I can't see us taking it up in that interim anyway, right? That's not gonna be high priority policy for me anyway, but I don't want to speak for the group. So-
I agree with you.
Yeah,
Priority is that bill.
Priority is what?
It's the capital bill, and the BGS is part of it. Over naming, this has gone on and on and on and on.
I'm happy to ask for a draft on moratorium on any state building naming. I'd be way supportive of that.
I'll co-sponsor with you.
I can't live past like 2080, so that'd be fine.
That's the moratorium date, 2080.
Yeah, it'd be 100.
Let's see here. You got that one?
I know, right? I just want to be sure.
You guys are all talking about, it would be helpful if someone could give us like a 2-minute breakout. Connor would be great, I think. I'm just asking for a brief history lesson for all of us who don't know what these people are talking about.
Thank you, Sean, for that. So there is a process to name roads and bridges after people, roads, bridges, any transportation infrastructure. There is a process that's not in the legislature to name those roads, bridges, anything. There's also a process within the Department of Libraries to name geographic areas. It could be mountains, it could be a recreational area, a lake, whatever. Naming of state-owned buildings, particularly that are under BGS's control, there is no process.
That's been the legislature's name.
It's a political potato, hot potato. No process, it's kind of ad hoc. We have some buildings that are named after people, but there's no structure. There are courthouses that are named. And the tradition has always been they're named after judges
Through this committee.
through this committee. So there has been a proposal, there's been legislation that's been introduced now for probably 6 years now, 3 terms.
So Madam Chair, Commissioner Obahowski and I was working with the committee, so that was 2012, 2013. Yes, that's why I think the
Not
history.
with the specific.
We did do an analysis on this, and what started is how it all became about is there was a request to name a building after state employees. And we worked very closely with our state employees union on, we weren't going to do a building, so then we were looking at a statute. And that resulted in, then we were looking at benches, and then that resulted in the Department of Buildings and General Services adopting a practice. I think we also had a senator who passed away,
Naming
Of an-
very complex.
naming conference rooms.
That
So
is happening.
within BGS, we do sort of have a process or a protocol to do that. And that's when I left. That's what I remember. So coming back and seeing this there again, I was just like, oh my goodness. And so but that started maybe 2013, 2014.
Yeah, and the big one was, we lost the Waterbury complex, we lost the state
Yep.
senator at about the same
Yep.
time. Her husband was appointed to the Senate and he wanted to name the Waterbury complex that we were rebuilding
Yep.
after his wife. And that was like, whoa. And
And
then-
did you?
No, we went down and named the conference.
We came up with this process, we came in and we identified conference rooms, which those I will share with you. And this goes to something earlier, I hope you don't mind, and if we should close a building, what we did, so where we had a conference room in public safety, when we built the new lab at public safety, we're able to transfer the conference rooms. That we just do as part of our protocol. So within the space, if there's a conference room that's named after an individual
A lab,
or a lab, and something happens to that building, if we rebuild it or if we realign it, those elements carry forward, and we don't have to come to the committee to have any discussions with you about, do you want to name it or not? So that, at that time, when I saw this report, I was like, we already solutioned this, didn't we? And it went to that ability to identify appropriate space in the area and I think some of the criteria, and we'll have to look to see if we can find it. I think working with Commissioner Obahowski, we said it would be a public space. It would be a space that maybe community members come in and use. And that's how we do it. So
so what has then happened, and I think that was like 5-6 years ago, there's been a former legislator from Burlington who has been advocating naming a building within the Capitol complex, 133 State Street. It's a big building after Governor Hall. And that has created a big conversation in that the Capitol complex is kind of its own entity unto itself. It's the seat of state government. In the Capitol complex, there is a designation for the Capitol complex. It goes down, all the way down here to Bailey Ave. Goes down Bailey Ave to the bridge. And then it comes all the way up, follows the river, all the way up to the other side of the pavilion on Aiken Ave and comes up there. And it's the seat of state government. You have the State House, you have the pavilion that houses the Attorney General's office, State Treasurer, and the Governor. You have the Tax Department. You have the Secretary of State, Auditor of Accounts. You have the Ag, and you had DMV. You got the big 120 State Street that used to be DMV, still is to a certain extent. So you got all the hub of state governments located in the Capitol complex. There's also a Capitol Complex Commission that oversees what happens in the Capitol complex. So if you do like an addition to the State House and you go out over here, Capitol Complex Commission kicks in to weigh in on that. So by starting to name a building in the Capitol complex, you open up the door for a political feeding frenzy to name all the other buildings. So who's going to be on the DMV building? Is it
Salmon.
well, there you go. We just lost a former governor. Do you name it after Secretary of Transportation? Do you name it after a secretary?
Commissioner of Buildings and General Services.
When you start opening this up, and spend a lot of time trying to figure out how do you go forward to name state buildings under the jurisdiction of BGS, because there's no process like there is for roads and bridges and geographic area. So we set up this study committee to come back with some recommendations on where this should be done, what should be the structure. And we were very clear that the General Assembly should not be naming these buildings so that we take the politics out of it. And so that's the request to ask to extend the report when it's due. Sure.
Just for the
Does
record,
that help?
Yeah, that totally helps.
just for the record, can you remind me who sponsored the bill to name 133 State?
Former Representative Mary Sullivan.
No, who sponsored it though?
Miss Connor.
What is?
And that was at the same time you put in for a bathroom on the state.
Yeah, right.
On the public restroom, it's a good idea. Good idea. And then one of our committee colleagues,
After
one of our committee colleagues wrote a blog about me and living in Cork for my district.
So Representative Casey, we still have one of those pink security, buildings, I think, stored over in the parking lot.
Nice.
I'll sort of like-
I think that sounds what you're gonna get involved in this committee. It is not dealing necessarily with bricks and mortar all the time. There's a lot of politics going in some of this. So we were just trying
And
to,
Sean, if you follow what has been said, we've studied the study that studied the study. Again,
And not to go too far down in this rabbit hole that we're on, but no matter who names the building, I would support your moratorium, by the way.
I'm on it.
It's always political.
Yeah.
You can be whatever group it is that you're gonna be connected in order to get that name on that building. It's always political.
And I'll just state it, I stated it last year, let's recall who has had access to the history of getting the accolades that would require, it's white man. Every building in the state of Vermont is named for a white man. Every single one of them. That's named. Every building.
Really?
Oh, yeah,
Brutal.
yeah.
That's beautiful.
And we are the only ones who have had access to the structures that allow us to get the reputation and the credibility that warrants us as being labeled worthy enough
Just
to
got
be.
elected though, so. It
Yeah.
was a little while longer. I could get my name.
So that's my personal opinion. I'm not willing to put,
Yeah.
I mean, additionally, it's a
Perpetuate
complete
that.
waste of time. Has nothing to do with how people live in Vermont.
Yeah.
Or services we provide,
Right.
and regardless of what the name is, somebody's nose is gonna be bent when you're done. So one is, I think the moratorium is a wonderful idea.
Here,
2080. Go put in the draft.
I'll get it going tonight.
But I can tell you, I know the feeling's,
Co-sign right now.
I know the feeling's a waste of time.
Let me write it first. then we
Wait
can
until
put some of
the
that
bill
state
gets
stuff.
introduced, and you start getting phone calls from
wait to
people
read
to
it.
support that,
Put a little snark.
because that will
Intent, yeah.
happen. That's been the pressure that has built on this bill.
And next year, someone could introduce a bill to name a building.
Mhm.
And again, you will go through that process.
Because we just had a governor die.
Mhm.
Our governor.
But I don't think the committee, yes. And so anyways, the request for April is because I feel that we being named as part of the study need to gather all of the studies and look at everything and have a conversation around it. And it's not clear to me, Madam Chair, that this committee that was created has done that.
So instead of extending it to April 15th, what if it could be extended to March 1st? Is that still, I'm just thinking in terms,
Of the Capitol bill?
yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of our work. April 15th is, our bill is long gone.
So we can, I understand that. So, could we, I know, so you come back, the first week of March, you are not in session, is that correct?
Yeah, because it's town meeting week.
So do you come back the 10th?
We come back the 10th and crossover will be that week for the 14th.
Mhm.
And then our
So
bill will.
would the
be coming
10th
out.
work? That week of the 10th? We will do the best that we can. So we will take note that you're going to communicate, even though we've asked for the 15th, that you verbally have now said, we can share that with the committee, March 10th.
My thinking is, for that, is we'll see what bills have been introduced this year, for naming whatever, because I'm
Yep.
assuming that 133 is gonna pop up again.
Yep.
If there is a drafting request for a moratorium, and the bill gets introduced, that will come here.
Correct. And then it would be germane.
Right. And we can do some work on that. And if we need to, we can meet crossover if we have to. Right, because crossover is the Friday of the week we come back after town meeting, if we do the bill, a bill. Or we can incorporate whatever in the capital bill, which comes out a week or two after crossover. I know this is new for you new folks, just hang on for the ride.
So I appreciate the cooperation of the committee and we can, and now I'm offering, even though we asked for April for Windsor, just based on that, in case we need language, we probably should try to move Windsor. And if we're gonna do it up to March 10th as well.
Because that will be more connected with the capital. There.
No, that's very reasonable. Thank you.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay, that's the easy part, right? Or the-
Okay,
I'll turn that around as quickly as I can.
Thank you, Troy.
would you like me to continue? So the document that we've talked about at the back end, we've resolved and and everything. So there are, I'm actually in the presentation and I'm at the table of contents. Because tab 1, 2, and 3 are established in statute. And they are required, we are required to, well, they're called tabs, but we don't have tabs. I apologize. These are annual reports that we must do. So is 4, 5, and 6. Actually, all of them are. And so these are ongoing reports. And then we have the special reports, and we really have talked about them. I'm going to just do a highlight, and if you decide as a committee that you want more, we can. The first one I'm just going to highlight quickly is the, and I apologize, the State Energy Management Program. This is a program that was created in this committee. I love history too. Mike Obahowski, Steve Klein, the chairs of the committee. And this is when we really started looking at how do we make investments of energy improvements and how do we fund them in state buildings? And that's really the simplicity of it. And you can see that it was created in 2015. This is a report that we jointly do with Efficiency of Vermont. At one time, we received money to help pay for the staff to do some of this work. It is a successful program. We are seeing benefits of that. And if you go to page 11, you will get a summary of the types of projects that we did, the locations, the costs, the savings, and the lifetime savings. I don't feel that I should have to walk you through this. It's a very detailed report.
And you reinvest those savings.
That's correct.
That's how you.
That is absolutely correct. So this is so every building that we build or we renovate, we bring energy efficiency designs and systems into it. But these are for buildings that if we're looking at a lighting project, this is where we try to utilize it and identify, and we try to continue to gain those efficiencies. So we're very conscious of energy investments in our state facilities, in our designs, and with this program.
So as an example, if you go to the Southern State Correctional Facility, talks about the projects that were done. And the cost of those projects are $888,000. And that basically would have come out of major maintenance. It could come out of the capital bill for a project, whatever, but that's where that 88,000.
Or we would have never done it because we couldn't have used that money.
Right, but if you didn't have the money.
That's right.
That's why I just wanted to start.
Yeah.
So then, that's what the project costs. This is how much in your first year savings was 71,000 and a lifetime saving was $1 million. Those savings then get reinvested into a subsequent project in another building.
You're absolutely right. And we identify the payback periods. One of the things that I'm really proud of is that when this committee came up with this program for buildings, Emily was working with us and she actually created the layout and really worked with Efficiency of Vermont on this. So we were both excited to come back to the department and still see it alive and strong and really accomplishing the goals that had been set out. And I don't know if you want to add to that, Deputy.
It's grown tremendously. So you may recall we started with the SERF, which was the State Energy Revolving Fund, which was for these upgrades to state facilities. And really, I thought a creative model for us to use to generate savings and finance projects. And it's just it's so wonderful to see how the program has grown. When we did the overview earlier, you could see how many FTEs are now in the energy office, and they've
Mhm.
expanded their work to support, you know, the electrical vehicle plugins and just support municipalities, which is the, you know, another report in here that the commissioner will touch on, but it's just really a proud moment to see
Yeah.
what work BGS is doing in the energy space.
Questions? Thoughts?
Thanks.
Um,
One quick question,
yeah,
if I may.
Mhm.
The first year savings, that would be rather obvious to me. You look at your bill and you compare it to last year's bill and you save 71,000. That'd be a correct way.
I think
Correction.
actually they do a more of a financial analysis on the use of energy and the systems that they're putting in and what the anticipated first year savings is. It's not just a comparison to the bill.
So it's a theoretical number.
It's a, go ahead.
When projects are being scoped and planned, they do theoretical calculations and then they do track actual savings over. So they're able to match up those actual savings versus the projected ones. And through these reports, you'll see as energy costs have risen, some of the timelines associated with those projections have become more of it, shorter, more of an issue just because again, energy costs are rising higher,
Right.
Higher and higher. So that's where, you know, we're honing in on our projections.
Well, that's where I was gonna go. So the lifetime savings is an estimate of what it's gonna be, but when you've got increasing costs and other variations, that's a tough number to come up with. But the first year savings is in fact a calculated number. It's not.
But even though your costs, you know, your electrical bills are going up, by not putting in LED lighting or dealing with refrigeration upgrades or HVAC renovations, you're still, without putting in those systems that were energy efficient, you would be spending a lot more money than you are now.
Yeah, it's called cost avoidance is in my history.
Yeah.
But
But
I
for.
was just curious how you came up with the first year savings.
Mhm.
That's really what my question was. Okay, thank you.
Again, I think if you read the report and you have specifics, you can ask us, you can ask Emily. This is Eric, but I'm not gonna read to you. I think there's 15 pages. I promise I won't. The next one is what we call tab 2 that begins on page 21. And this began in 2022. This is a new program to me. But this is the Municipal Energy Resilience Program, or known as MERP. There was $45 million in the American Rescue Plan Act. 36.6 million, roughly, of that $45 million was assigned to BGS to go out and to promote community energy long-term projects. This is what I was talking about this morning, where I think we finished notification in November. That went out to all of the communities. There was, I think it's 162 grants. 100, see, I got my numbers turned around. 126, but they were the 3 correct numbers. That went out, and it was a really competitive program. It was hugely successful. BGS did have a deadline of getting this done before end of November. It's one of the first things that I had to work on when I took over. I really, a shout out to Doug Farnham and his team coming in and working with Eric and his team so we could go through, because I'm feeling like for some reason I'm remembering, and I know this is on record, there had been 500 or 600 potential applications. It was a big lift. There's a lot of money that's gone out to your community. And
the money this is ARPA money. This is all from COVID.
Yeah.
Money. And there were deadlines that had to be met in terms of when you had a contract signed and when you have the project completed. And I think it's by December of 26, you have to have the project completed.
I believe that is the restriction on the
You use the money.
community. Yes, but the summary of the projects and, you know, if you want, not a presentation, but if you want if anyone wants a copy of the list, I'd be happy to get that for you, that if you want to
You know
see.
what towns.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
so if we can just get the spreadsheet and we'll share that with the committee and they can have that to glance at, I think that would be perfectly fine.
That was just to highlight, there's 246 buildings in 126 awarded municipalities. So,
So-
good diversity in recipients.
Kevin,
I don't want to sound critical, but did you say we used COVID money?
ARPA, that's what it's for.
That's what it was meant
ARPA came in through COVID, the ARPA, American Rescue Plan. If you go up on the call, if you can go up to the beginning there. Because I forgot how many,
Act 172.
yeah, I forgot how many millions of dollars we got through the American Rescue Plan. That was for COVID to really energize the economy.
I think it was over
towards
200.
projects.
Yeah.
Fully understand how that's directly related, so.
It wasn't.
Directly
for-
related to
It wasn't for
what?
healthcare stuff. It's to rejuvenate the economy.
Yeah, it was from the federal
From
government.
Congress.
It was through
That's-
Congress.
okay.
It wasn't us, it was Congress.
No, I understand.
And
Yeah.
I forgot how many total, it was a few billion, wasn't it?
Yeah, I just don't, I know DMV didn't get any of it. So my focus was but boy, when I came to BGS, we got some.
Billion, wasn't it? We got?
1 or 2.
1 or 2 billion we got. And then also what we have, hold on, just to confuse it, then we have, after that, Congress put in for the IIJA, Infrastructure Improvement Jobs Act.
Yes.
And we're getting a lot of money for our water systems and our sewer systems. We're in the going in the third year of a 5-year program that we have to have state money to match this.
It was 2.7 overall,
2.7 billion.
2.7 billion. And
The-
then 1 billion of that was for state to deploy between, so it's 2.7 total.
2.7 billion, that's with ARPA.
Yeah,
Only
yeah.
ARPA. Yeah. So this is part of that share. And if it's not under contract by the end of this year, and then if it's not completed by the end of next year, we have to reach this money. Well,
No, did this committee in the previous biennium approve those MERP grants? Because I've heard from several municipalities about that. How did this?
So I wasn't here. I think that it was, in Act 172, the assignment to BGS of the 33 was for us to manage it. So I don't
we didn't
know
have
that.
anything to do with it.
Okay.
It came out of Natural Resources Committee,
Okay.
then went to appropriations, because appropriations was approving the reward of this money from the feds, and then working with appropriating the dollars.
So I do know that I did have some conversations with your office from Joint Fiscal because they were monitoring it very closely, so. And on page 35, and I totally missed this, pages 35 through 37, there's some data at a high level, and it will at least show you by county, some of the amounts and the number of projects. But there's mini grants and then there's some other ones, but we'll get you the detail. We'll get you the detail on. Would you like me to continue or further questions?
Keep going.
So on the table of contents, so the first 3 tabs, and I apologize, I don't know why this didn't connect. So the first 3 reports are reports established in acts that have never been converted to statute. The last 3 reports, but they tell us we have to do it every year. And then the last 3 reports are specific in Title 29. So my team should have corrected me. I give them permission. So the next report that starts on page 38, which is very lengthy. And again, I'm not gonna go through it. But this is, so it was really interesting. Emily and I had looked at this language and my staff didn't think they needed to do it. Because it was amended in 21?
2014 or
2014, and actually it's required annually. It'd be interesting for us to look at this language, to see if this is something we should continue, or refine. But so this gives you, it's a very deep, it's the background on the fleet management program. It's the mileage break even point, and it talks about the departments. There's some statistics that are on page 41 that does an analysis of the full rate mileage reimbursement, because there's policies of you have to use a fleet vehicle or you get a lesser amount in state mileage reimbursement. There's lots of guiding points to this, and I know I don't want to get into the detail. So, and then the last one shows you the miles driven and by departments and what it looks like. So we've been reporting on this. It's sort of been a report that gets filed. And we don't, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about the program. Has the program seen a little bit of change? With COVID and with the teleworking, some of the policy change, people who are assigned teleworking may actually be on the road every day. They're just not coming necessarily into an office. So utilization may not have changed that much because of teleworking, because of the work and the services that they're providing in communities.
Eric?
I think you answered it, but have you done the report every year?
Yes, and I think it just gets filed and no one talks about it. But I'm looking at these reports going, what is I'm hoping going forward, because again, I look at you as my committee of jurisdiction, what are reports are beneficial?
So, government ops every year goes through reports that are due. And they look to those respective policy committees that deal with that. It's up to the policy committees to report back to GovOps. Do these reports continue? Do we give it another year to see? So I don't know where the fleet management report is, but if we could make a note, somebody make a note that we follow up on this. Because this report could pop up with GovOps going through their reports, or maybe we can deal with it in the capital bill.
Well, we still have the data because we look at the data because it's about the success of the program, at least from an operational standpoint. So the information will always be there. We would not stop looking at that. But
That was gonna be my question. Like, the value of a report, even if certain other people don't read it, is obviously for your own data and making, and my question was gonna be like, you don't have a report, you're not gonna go pull the data. But you're saying you are.
no, because we have other policies in state government on expectations of departments.
And one thing to add is that we do operationally send a copy of this report to the agencies and departments where we've identified those high mileage users. And that's to let them know it might be more cost effective for them to have their own dedicated fleet vehicle
Right.
rather than going through the rental. So it does help as a communication tool, those.
And that's under our policy and under the directive of the Secretary of Administration. Then what's interesting is your report doesn't tell us to do that. That's how we function. So that's where the data comes into the operation side. It's just, how would you, anyways.
Trying to find
You're trying to find the answer right now?
what happens year to it. Field.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Tucker. This is sort of the keeper of that.
Yeah.
Of this report?
No,
it's- So part of it is, so Ledge Council will go through, we'll see which reports are due, and then we'll tell the committees, these are the ones that, you should consider to either repeal a requirement, continue it, or continue it indefinitely.
Or maybe take our and consider our recommendation.
Well, that's false.
Because that recommendation would come from the standing committee.
So maybe by the end of my testimony, we'll figure it out.
Okay, so I can wrap up the remainder if you'd like. So on page 43, this is in Title 29. And this morning you were hearing the section, the policy section that talks about how we have authority to take unexpended money and to transfer it. And specifically for major maintenance. To date, no funds or have been transferred to support other projects. So there you go. And the language is beneficial because it is something we do look at when we have to figure out if we need to fund a project. The next one on page 44 in statute is the transfer of unexpended bond balances for major maintenance. This is, again, no funds were transferred and expended from unspent balances. And that's our report on that. And then the last one, property management, I apologize. So we have to issue this report. We have to give you a copy of it, but this is really budget. I just want to say to this committee. So this is about the property management revolving fund. This is the program that Eric runs. This is fee for space. You will hear about fee for space in this committee. It is how we pay for our buildings that we own and operate. And there has always been, I'm going to just simplify it. The program was set up. There has always been a fund balance at the end of the year. It carries forward. And this is the report that we have to issue. And I don't think it's necessary to go through the numbers and explain it, but I just want to identify we have to report it. We will be talking about this in appropriations. Guaranteed.
And whoever's our BGS liaison to approach will be hearing about.
That's right. And so the last report on page 48, this is fairly new to me. And I think it was also to Emily. So I'm just saying 2014, you established, and I remember this happening, the Estate Energy Management Program. And this is BGS and the Senate and House Committees on Institutions. And this is money that we work with the Treasurer's Office on. And this is another revolving fund. And if we go to page 49, we've invested 3.7 million from this SURF in the energy projects. It has, and that have resulted in 2.3 in avoided energy costs. There's a whole formula that goes with this. You established a credit facility with the Treasurer's Office with authority up to $8 million to do these energy investments. And to date, 4.5 is still available for approval of funds. And that's about as much of it as I know about it. Also, I think as a committee, but it did come out of this committee. This is where it was set. And then these are, I'm being honest, these are the types of projects that we did that went through that fund. There are criteria and expectations and energy savings with it. And Emily's probably done a little bit more research than me.
Emily?
This is, if you're looking at reports, the first report that the commissioner walked through was the SEMP annual report, and it's a big report that's done in coordination with Efficiency Vermont. This is talking about sort of the same things that are under the SEMP, but this is more granular information about what projects were funded through the two revolving funds per year. So, potentially there's an opportunity to consolidate, because there are three separate reports on the same area.
So consolidate the report or consolidate the programming?
They're already consolidated program lines.
All the money comes from this report.
Yeah, But so that it could be one SEMP report that contains all of this information that currently comes in different reports. And it could just be put together as part of the annual SEMP report, just.
And I appreciate that because I'm still sitting here going, okay, we got 3 programs, but in theory, we have one program and one source of funds from the treasurer's office that does all of the energy improvements. Is that?
The revolving funds, yes, one source of funds, but then we do other work through the SEMP, right? Like the MERP, which was the ARPA fund. So there's different work that comes through the same program. So they do a lot. And then these revolving funds go under that SEMP program.
So you're looking at consolidating the reports.
If Emily had time to redline, these reports, she probably would have, just so it's digestible. Because I can tell you, we have presented it. This is a standard of the methodology. It's been presented in, but it's very hard. We'd like to make it a little bit more user-friendly and consolidate.
Structurally, that first tab, like this, that was from session law, that sub report, which is the big report that the Commissioner was walking through. And then these revolving fund ones are in statute. So potentially there's an opportunity to have it be one SEMP report that contains revolving fund updates.
Have it in statute. And for new members, we will go through at some point, let council, what's the difference between statute that's in the green books and session law that's not in the green books. We'll go through that. They're both,
They both have the equal force and effect law. Some green books just are published. Are usually more time limited or not considered to be worthy of green book publishing.
session law. So the capital bill is session law. It's not in statute. So your capital bill, this here, and all this language, unless it's so indicated, all this language is not in the green books.
I just have a quick clarifying question on these on the revolving fund. What's you've invested 3.7 of that 8. You got 4.5, let's call it, are there parameters on, especially time parameters by which those have to be encumbered or anything like that?
So there are parameters on life, I think there's analysis on life cycle and payback. It's a revolving fund that the treasurer manages, so they're, I don't want to, I'm looking at Emily because she's going to do a better job than me. Emily, take it away.
So that's a significant delta there, the 4.5 that hasn't been used, and I'm wondering,
So, and to be candid, I need to go back and talk with
That's-
the
yeah.
SEP staff just about status, because I'm wondering if some of that is this, the SURF project summary, if we also look at the SMRF, State Resource Management Revolving Fund. I think,
SMART was the acronym.
yeah.
Yeah, we got Smurf, MERP, and
SURF. Under the SEP. So we got a lot of acronyms
under the
here.
SEP.
So I think that they're coming from the same pool. So I'd like to just speak to the team and get some more clarity on that specifically. But yes, there are defined for each project, their projections and then expected payback period. So we do have a good relationship with the
Really
treasurer's
excited
office.
to be digging into another revolving fund because those are really easy usually.
But I think, I love your question because it goes to, again, Emily and Cole and I sitting there going, to present this, it's very convoluted right now. And to Emily's point, it's sort of like, here's the money. And because it may be all the same projects, but we're presenting it in 3 different ways. And to be able to come up with a way to be able to put on 2 sheets, this is what we did last year. Here's the money. This is how it's being used. And here are the savings. Because again, it's a successful program.
Right, I don't doubt that, yeah. When I see 4.5 million unused, I'm wondering how that.
Well, and you've got to look at all of the authority because I think the whole statute directs the treasurer how to set it up, so it's not,
Yeah.
I'm not sure where the money, it's not coming from your bonded money, but right, it's another one of those funds, so. Madam Chair, that is the summary of the projects that we filed on the legislative homepage. I appreciate the oral approval on the March 10th for those other reports. This morning, you did have a review of some additional reports that you are expecting to get. Other entities are leading on those. And we will be a part of some of those discussions or here listening to them.
Some of the intent of the reports may change as we work through a new capital budget.
Yes.
Later. Anything else of the commissioner before we switch gears to Ben? Thank you. Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will see you again.
Yes, we could do an overview of the property management tomorrow if you need a fill-up. If you don't, then that's okay.
Well, we could.
That was the word, well, it's
Is
sort
that
of
the one with 108 Cherry too?
it's just, and that would be Director Pembroke, and we've got a PowerPoint that does a high level overview, and then we could answer questions. Just letting you, no, that's for Friday.
That's
We're
for
looking for Friday.
I don't know if that'd be too much for people to end on Friday, but that might be a good fill-in for that. We'll let Phil figure it out.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're gonna shift gears to corrections real fast. Real fast.
We're heading back, are you saying?
And we got, you've got the bill. We're gonna go through the bill.
Other stuff.
Okay.
Guys.
Okay. Now we got people.
Taking a quick break.
Let's take a quick
Okay.
break. By the time people
And we
get
have
started.
time.
We need some time to.
Buildings that are not.
Believe it, but I don't know if they're thinking.
We've got
I'll double
to,
check.
we've got to be on.
I've never seen the roster.
Oh, I'll make a quick work of this. Just don't ask any questions.
There are some buildings.
There shouldn't be any questions.
Certainly. Yeah.